Welcome back, everybody, to Everyday Christian Apologetics. So glad that you're here. So glad that we're here. Thanking the Holy Spirit, Triune God, for giving us the platform to once again speak on the scripture, biblical literacy, and the events that face us today. I want to say shout out to my co-hosts, right? Everybody's going to be rotating. I got a new name for us, guys.
Let me hear it.
It's called the ECA crew.
Okay? ECA, what's this?
The ECA crew is us, right? Eventually, people are going to have a favorite of us, right? And when they communicate with us on our website, I'll probably get the most of them, right? But when they communicate on the website, they're going to be able to talk to us individually, okay?
Oh, that's cool.
Or ask us questions or answer it to anything that we may be talking about. But, I'll just refer to anybody who's on regular rotation as the ECA crew. Okay, nice. That cool. Just came to me. That's the Holy Spirit.
Neat shirts now.
I'm working on that actually. Okay, so hey, no delays. We're gonna go ahead and work on it. We have precious little time. One thing that we've learned, man, is we always have a lot to say, and we never have enough time to say it. Right?
Yeah. Right.
So I'm gonna go ahead and open it. I'm gonna tell you what this episode is about. This is about your role as a man in the kingdom.
That's good.
Okay. Now, if you're an unbeliever, I just wanted to break it down as a Christian male, right? What our lens is, what our platform is that we go ahead and move in the kingdom on, and what is it that we think we're responsible for, and what is it that God demands of us. Okay.
That's good.
I'm gonna go first. Okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna get my stuff out that way I don't interrupt you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to state a defense for the biblical position of a man's role in the kingdom. All right. It is to be a father in the biblical sense, which is in fact the head of the household. I want to compare and contrast three major points. Okay. Patriarchy versus biblical patriarchy. Worldly submission versus biblical worldly submission.
That's good.
Right. And worldly head of the household versus biblical head of the household.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Good.
I'm going to start in the reverse. Head of the household, right? The way the world sees it. You know what? Let me do it this way. Zara, what would you say makes you the head of the household?
I define that as the person that's held responsible for everyone within my household. Yes. I'm held responsible for my wife. I'm held responsible for my 3 children. And anyone that is in that household, I'm responsible for, because that's sort of like my domain, Mm-hmm. So that's my definition of head of the household.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by responsible for your wife?
Protection.
Yeah.
Providing.
Mm-hmm.
Well-being. And when I say well-being, some people say, well, well-being, that's the same as protection or
emotional, mental.
You got it.
Physical.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be that person to help lift her up.
Yeah.
And when it's needed.
Yeah. Would you feel like she also holds some of that responsibility?
She does. To an extent, she does. And I say this because, God created women to be that helpmate for the man. Mm-hmm. And that's something that even in my own household, we've had to come to real understanding. I think a lot of secular things start coming into play that pulls that apart. And before long, you don't realize your position. And I hate to use the word position in a sense, because I don't want to make this seem like it's a job, but in a sense, it really is.
Your role.
It's your role.
Yeah.
But understanding that, she's there to assist me, right? But I also have a duty to her as well, to allow the flow and the symbiotic relationship to continue the way it needs to, healthy.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is if it becomes just a take, you're here to assist, and nothing else in return, then it falls apart.
Yeah.
Well said. Wow. Bro, he brought the smoke already.
Yeah.
He came with it.
He was ready.
What about you, Charlie?
What was the question again?
How would you define head of the household?
Head of the household. Czar pretty much tackled it. Mm-hmm. I would say probably from a more secular mindset and just from experience and seeing how the secular world works, right? I've come to find that a lot of times when women are looking for a man, I've come to find that or let's not even just put, sex on it. Let's just put when two people are looking for something. I've come to find that it's not even so much, it's not spirit-led, right? Because we're thinking about ourselves. So it's more comes from a selfish, self-centered thing. So what I've come to find that people are looking for is, how can this person boost my ego? How can this person inspire more pride in myself? How can they make me look better, right? And a lot of stronger women, they're looking for a man that can make them submissive, right? Someone that will degrade them. But a lot of women are looking, like some specific women, when they're very strong-willed, like
They want an alpha male.
Yeah, they want an alpha male that will make them feel submissive or lesser than.
Yeah.
And then there's some women that want a lesser man because they want to feel more alpha. Mm-hmm. They want to feel in charge, Yeah. And so head of the household is, I would say from a secular standpoint, it can go
either way.
Yeah, it can go either way.
From a secular standpoint, yeah, I would have to agree with that. That it can, based on what I've observed as well, and see where that can be the case. Yeah. But I guess the question now becomes, and I'm gonna leave this to Raul here. When we get from a biblical standpoint, is it healthy for it to be the other way, where it's the woman that is right? That's a whole nother topic.
And how much of that mindset, specifically talking towards provision, being able to provide, the culture that we're in nowadays, you almost have to have a two-tier income. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So both man and woman are needing to provide. And so does a lot of, where in the Bible, right, does it say that the man has to be the sole provider of income? And was that more of just like a Jewish cultural tradition, right? Or is God sovereign and, in the sense of, it's less direct with the roles that we're playing, and there's a broader understanding of head of the household. Like, is it more of like a spiritual, like responsibility, like what you were talking about? So like we as men, we can be responsible of the decisions that are made. We can be responsible for the protection of our family. But say we make less than the woman. Does that mean that we're less of the head of the house? Or is that the provision that God has given our family? So
probably secularly, we would be somebody who, the man that makes less than the woman might be seen as,
in the secular realm.
Yeah, might be seen as less of
a head.
Yeah, because they're not, putting in more of the bacon.
When you look at it from a secular standpoint, look at when you do your taxes. Head of household, they go with the highest income as the head of household, right? Because the more dependents you have, the less that you can claim, the less you pay on taxes on. So from a secular standpoint, yes, you would say that.
Yeah.
Right. But
man,
Jay,
I agree with both of these gentlemen. But I guess biblically speaking, I would think of the head of the household as the one more of the provider side of what Zara was talking about. Like right now, my wife makes more than me. She's working in government, and I'm a school teacher. And of course, school teachers don't get paid that much. So right now, if we were to go secularly, I would be seen as beta male or whatever you want to call it. But me and my wife are in agreement that she's my helpmate and I'm her helpmate. So I need to help her to continue to be able to do what she's doing to help support the family. And then she helps me as I continue to support the family. So it's not like one is greater than the other. It's both of us have to work together to build this thing together. And as a provider, I make sure that I provide a safe space for my wife to come and talk to me. She doesn't have to go off and gossip to other people. She can come talk to me.
That's a good one. That's
I have to provide emotionally, right? I have to, when she's feeling low, I can't, it's hard for men sometimes to hold your wife up while they're crying. It's like, all right, you good, buddy? So like learning how to be emotionally vulnerable to her, like knowing that I go through things too. I want to cry too, but I don't necessarily cry. I express my emotions in different ways. So just learning how to foster that environment for her, and then she does the same for me. So I think head of the household is a provider in those aspects.
Okay, so this is the beauty of the word, right? The word is always going to be true. Remember, we were talking earlier, and I said something that's true is always true.
Yeah.
If it's true today, it's true in 10 days, 10 years, 10,000 years, right? And that is one of the things that we find in the word on all levels. Charlie, you said something very important, right? Is there something in the Bible that said that the man had to be the one to be the provider, in other words, right?
Yeah.
In that day, there was no choice, right? The world was very physical back in those days. The way you survived was through physical brute force and strength.
Yeah.
Okay. There weren't a lot of opportunities for women to have careers, right? And bring money in. It just was the way of the world. So if you notice in the Bible,
culture,
it was,
tradition.
From the Assyrians to the Babylonians to the Romans, everybody, right?
Yeah.
It was a world culture.
Yeah.
So if you notice and you really read and look for it, God kept that out of there. He didn't make that part of you being the head of the household.
Right.
It's not the provider. All right.
Say it one more time.
God did not make it so that in order for you to be head of the household, you have to be the provider.
Got you. Yeah.
Right. The head of the household is something that you also said, Charlie, what is a spiritual thing.
Yes.
It's in the spiritual kingdom.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is not. So to the people listening, if you ever are brought about with that question or asked the question, well, what if my wife makes more? That's an irrelevance.
Yeah.
It's a complete irrelevance. Let me tell you something. If my wife made $350,000 a year, I would not work. I would just be doing podcasting and whatever else that is that I want. But I promise you that I would be the head of the household.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All the decisions would be going through me because they would be based on the decisions that Christ wants me to make.
Yeah.
Not the decisions that Raul wants to make, right? Because Raul's tried before I was born again, and it's a disaster.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
So all right, let me get into some of the things that I was talking about. So let's talk about the intended order, right? That was head of the household. Let me talk about worldly patriarchy and biblical patriarchy. Is patriarchy a thing that is what God intended? All right. Now, patriarchy has been demonized, right?
Yeah.
In the secular world, it has been very demonized. And why is that? Because men have abused their role in the family, right? Started from a biblical standpoint, right? But it became, I'm stronger. I can force you to my will. I have a high level of lust. I will go after women. The society doesn't allow you to divorce me anyway. You don't have a lot of opportunities, so you're just going to have to deal with it, right? It became a very sinful way of a man, a way a man was. And
abuse of power.
It's a complete abuse of power. Yeah. So when I hear certain groups talking about the patriarchy, they're talking about that. And I think it's a valid argument.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's talk about the patriarchy the way God intended. So first of all, let's establish the patriarchy. All right. Let's get rid of the ambiguity of the statement, right? I've heard sometimes guys, they're talking about this and they don't want to offend the other side. So they say, let's get rid of that. Okay. God intended a patriarchy, right? Yeah. The tent of creation itself, reality, right, is headed by the Father, who then passes that inheritance to his son. There is no ambiguity in that. Right? It's symbolic of the intended order. All right. Now, let's look at in the beginning of time, the first man and the first woman. The principal responsibility of God-centered behavior was put on the man. Adam failed in this and consequently sin follows the man, which is why Jesus had to be born of a virgin birth, because the responsibility of the sin in the garden, even though they both did, the man bore that because he's the head of the household.
Wow. And she even did it bore him.
She did it before him, but it was on the man.
Yeah. That's real.
Even when they're talking in the garden, I always imagine, because I'm very imaginative, I always imagine the way God was actually talking to the situation. All right. So you have three players in front of God. at the moment when God busted everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
The first person he addressed was the devil. And he said, I'm going to take care of you. One day you're going to be no more. I'm going to end you. Genesis 3:15, the first mention of the gospel as we know it. Okay. Then he said to the woman, because you have disobeyed me, I will make childbirth. Right?
Painful.
Painful.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, he addresses that situation. And then he goes back to the devil and says, I will make your children and the woman enemies. Notice how he keeps Adam out of it. He's side-eyeing Adam. He's like, I'm coming for you because I'm the most
saving the best for last, bud.
I'm the most upset with you. You're not even in this situation. You bear the responsibility. So let me take care of the light work first. Then I'm going to get to you.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. Then he says to Adam, right? Why are they getting, well, the reason why they got kicked out of the garden so they didn't keep eating from the tree of life. But why was the world cursed? Why was the human race fallen? Because you listened to your wife. And it's not that you listened to your wife per se, but because she wasn't upholding my commandments, so to speak. Or, my commandments, right? It was up to you to say, no, put that away. We are to obey God. But you didn't do that. And for that, I will curse not only you, but the ground itself. Okay? So let's not be under any kind of, even Steven kind of, we're both responsible. No, you're both not responsible. Where the family heads on a spiritual level is completely on you. Wow. He made it very clear with Adam and Eve. Okay. Let's go to the establishment of the Jewish people itself, which ultimately led to the embodiment of the Messiah. The Messiah couldn't have existed without the Jewish people. Right. The Jewish people didn't exist in the time of Abraham. Abraham was not Jewish. Isaac was not Jewish. Yeah. It wasn't until Jacob came along who was called Israel.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. And his children became the tribes of the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Right? So the establishment was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the fathers of this land. Obviously, there were women involved, right?
Yeah.
He didn't say, I am the God of Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah, right? Leah is the mom of Judah, which the tribe that Jesus is descended from, right? No, he didn't refer to those three. He referred to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I bring that up not to say that men are superior on any level, right? What I'm saying is when God established the plan for our salvation, it was established through a patriarchy. So the biblical patriarchy is real, okay?
Yeah.
Now, how are we to act towards our helpers, as Czar said?
Can I ask a question?
Go.
So, going back to what we previously mentioned about what you said concerning the culture of that time, right? More physical. There was not as much opportunity for women to establish wealth because, would you say that obviously God had to establish the patriarchy in that present time because there was not the opportunity for, what I'm getting at is just because there is a biblical way of a patriarch, right? Does that mean that a matriarch is unbiblical?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll explain it. Okay. It was established before the foundations of the earth was laid.
Yeah.
So let's say the world was created where women has as much opportunity as men.
Say it again.
Let's say the world was created, or not created, but let's say the world went, right? Because after Adam and Eve, that world is man's world, right? That's why he calls the devil the prince of the earth, right? That was not the intention God had. So, but let's say in man's world, women had equal opportunity. He still laid the foundation of salvation before he still laid the foundation of our salvation before the foundations of the earth were made. So there was the Father and the Son before time and space existed.
Yeah.
So patriarchy had nothing to do with the fact that a woman couldn't earn in those days. It's an irrelevance to God.
So what is the definition of a patriarchy?
Where the biblical definition, the male is spiritually responsible, right? Sort of like Czar said it in the best way. The man is ultimately responsible for the safety and protection physically. Hey, okay. if your daughter's crossing the street and gets hit by a car, that's not on you.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
But if she walks away from God, and is possibly going into eternal damnation, that's on you.
Yeah.
Which goes back to, as Raul mentioned, going back to the garden.
Yeah.
Why he blamed
Adam. That comes full circle.
She stepped out of line.
Yes.
Are you not continuously putting the positivity of what the Lord already set place with your wife so that she doesn't do that?
Yeah.
You left her being free reign,
yeah,
and not pulled her back in, or not continuously, feeding her soul, her spirit, the right. So what made her decide to do that? What are you not doing on a regular basis?
Or even if she did do that, it's your responsibility as a man
to correct
it and not to follow suit with incorrect
So,
decisions.
If I remember correctly, and I don't want to speak out of word, he said, "Well, that woman."
He did, yeah. That woman that you gave,
that you gave me.
Right.
He tried it.
That woman that
He tried it.
Yeah.
He tried. He tried to put it on you.
So I got a question. So if he's spiritually responsible, like let's say there's somebody who's a man of God, and he's building everything in his home, doing the spiritual stuff he's supposed to do, and that woman doesn't follow, is he now responsible because she decided she didn't want to follow? Like,
so
is he now responsible because she didn't? Her heart wouldn't turn to Christ. You know what I'm saying? Like,
can I step on that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question.
That's a great question. Why doesn't she want to follow? That's what you have to ask yourself as a man.
But why is that on me?
We just talked about why it's
no,
on
but
you.
I'm saying like, it's her spiritual walk with Christ. It's a personal thing.
Understood.
So I understand doing my part.
Understood.
But
also the Bible also talks about being unevenly yoked. Unevenly yoked before getting into marriage.
Right.
So now, if you choose to step into an unevenly yoked relationship, you're already saying you're going to take on all that comes with that.
Yep.
And that's something you're going to have to tackle. The Bible is a guide.
Right.
Okay? It's to help us not only understand God's word, but through life, we realize, this is why you say, this is why you say, this is why you say.
Head knowledge becomes experiential knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you say she did not want to listen to me, was she always like that prior going into the relationship? And more than likely, she probably was.
For sure.
And if that's the case, you've decided to walk into something that he spoke against of being unevenly yoked.
So then what does the man do after that? Does he now, all right, gotta go, baby. Now it's divorce. That's a whole nother topic.
No.
You know? So it's like, then what do you do if they decide they don't want to change?
So the Bible addresses that, right? Because he made the man spiritually responsible. God, right? If you're going to look at the Bible as Tota Scriptura, which means read it in its entirety, right? It's already understood, man. I already established this with Adam. You're responsible. So we don't need to talk about a wife who doesn't love me. We don't need to talk about that, right? But let's talk to a wife whose husband doesn't love God.
Right.
There's instruction on that. You are still to walk in the ways of the light. You're still to walk in the ways of God, if to influence him, so that he can then turn that way. It's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. If you made the decision to marry a woman who has no love for Christ, and I'm not talking about a woman who goes to church. I'm talking about a woman who has no love for Christ, then you've already taken that on. So now you have to patiently walk out that man of God, like you said. Keep walking it out. You do not have the right now to divorce her. You do not have the right now to be aggressive physically or emotionally, right? Because you made the decision to bring her in.
Right.
Yeah, you took it on.
But you didn't. What if the person? I don't want to get on this too long. But what if the person didn't know? Like, let's say I was not living for Christ when we got married, and we were perfect.
Yeah.
Now that I'm living for Christ and I'm trying to implement this and creating that spiritual provider.
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Right.
And
right.
I'm asking this for the people who kind of
have
talked to me about that. And I'm like, I don't know, bro.
Absolutely.
I hate this response.
Go ahead.
But you pray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what not in
that like that bogus, oh Lord help me, blah 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 blah. It's like no, actually, pray for those specific issues that you see coming up in her heart.
Right.
Pray for wisdom and how to approach it. Pray for emotional stability and how to address it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I feel like cultural Christianity, our prayers are not, our prayers are just like,
they're not God-centered.
wishy-washy, hopeful, but really kind of
generic, very
generic. Yeah, just like
They're selfish.
Selfish talks, hopeful or wishful thinking, if anything.
Yep.
But
yep. I mean, and a prayer like that could look like, if I'm sure you guys will agree, God, please soften her heart, keep my wrath in reaction to her disobedience. And when I address it with her, please, Holy Spirit, take over and say the words that you'd want to say, hold my tongue. Right. But at the end of the day, your only option is to live out still, walk out your life like a man of God. That's not easy, but it's the bed you made because you chose that. Yeah. Right. And that's something I want to cover in a second. All right. So, and I just want to do a couple of final points. The genealogy in Luke 23 to 38, right? Jesus' linealogy traces Jesus to Adam. That was very necessary for Jesus' ability to claim to be part of Judah, right? And that was even predating Jesus' time. You were able to claim an inheritance based on your tribe. So, if you were from the tribe of Benjamin, from the tribe of this and that, Manasseh, it doesn't matter. If there was land that was available and you were from that tribe and you proved you were from that tribe, you had first shot at that land before anybody from another tribe. So your legal lineage or genealogy had to be established. It was established in Luke through Adam. Then when it comes to the blood, right, it was established in Matthew 1-17, started with Abraham and ended with Jesus, right, which is very important, right, because the affirmation of blood traced back to Abraham talked about the spiritual connection that Jesus had, not just with the Jews, but with the Gentiles, because Abraham and Isaac were Gentiles, okay? And then to answer a question, I have other notes here, but I'm not going to go into them. Ephesians 5:22, which I actually have engraved on my ring here, it says, wives, subject yourselves to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is head of the wife, as Christ is also head of the church, he himself being savior of the body. Now, and there's a lot of other quotes that repeat that same exact sentiment. 1 Corinthians 11, Colossians 3:18, 1 Peter 3:1 and 5. All right, but let's talk about then how a husband and a wife as two human beings are to relate to each other, right? However, in the Lord, neither is woman independent of man, nor is man independent of woman. For as a woman originated from the man, so also the man has birth through the woman, and all things originate from God. So women would not be here if it wasn't for the man. Men would not be born on the earth if it wasn't for the women. So there's a circle there in terms of the value. Yeah. We're equal in value.
100%.
Right? 100%.
Yeah.
And that value stems from the fact that we both originated from God.
Yeah.
So, right? So head of the household is not an aggressive machismo alpha male concept, right? Yeah.
So good.
That is a secular worldview. Yeah. The biblical worldview is strong, right, but gentle at the same time, right? Affirming and loving at the same time, but knowing when to say this isn't going to happen. I'm going to close with this. There's plenty of time for you guys to talk, but I'm going to close with this. My wife and I are looking for a house, okay? And I didn't use credit for like 4 or 5 years. So I had no credit whatsoever, right? So I was in the basement when it comes to my credit score, right? In the basement. It was really easy to actually lift it up to a point where I can qualify for a house because it wasn't a matter of derogatory credit. It was just no credit. So I established lines and blah, blah, blah. I got to a point where I had qualified for a loan at 3%, right, for FHA and for the VA. And I probably could have gotten a loan anywhere else too, you know. Yeah. But would that have been best for my family in today's market with houses that are worth $250 that are selling for $500,000, right? You're going to be in that house for a while. Even if I plan to move out in 5 years, there's still the legacy of that high price after 5 years. My wife fell in love with 2 or 3 different houses, right, that in my flesh, I wanted to buy the house for her because I adore my wife, right? That's good. But because I keep my eyes on God, right? The Holy Spirit said, first of all, you need to wait, show patience, keep building your profile like you're doing, and get to a point where you can qualify for 0% because you're probably going to have to redo a bunch of this stuff, right? These 90s built houses, right? And you need to get a credit profile so when the market changes in its own way, you can go ahead and refinance, and you guys will be in the best shape financially. If she loses her job, you can still hold it down. Right, head of the household isn't about money, but I take taking care of my family pretty serious, right? I'm going to hold that. If my wife loses a job, I'm still holding it down. I'm not going to hold it down because I'm going to give in to her desire and buy this house that we could barely afford with both of us employed, and she loses a job. Now I'm getting foreclosed,
That's
right?
good.
Yeah. That is an example in the real world. Let's get the the whole spiritual thing out of it. In the real world, because I kept my eyes on Christ, looking out for my family financially, I resisted wanting to give in to my wife.
Yeah.
Now, the beautiful thing is, and I'll close with this, circling back, I married a woman who has a deep fear and love for God. My wife is also a very alpha female. She's nothing to play with, right? Her personality, right? She's like a razor blade, right? But as strong as she is completely bought into submitting to me, as long as what I walk is Jesus' will, God's will.
Good.
Yeah.
As soon as I step out of that,
She
right?
let you know.
Don't let me pull into the driveway with a boat. She's gonna say, look, I think not. You're gonna march your little self over and turn that boat back. Why?
Right.
Because that boat would lead to financial ruin for my family because it wouldn't allow me to invest. If God blesses us with children, it impacts, saving for college and all that.
Yeah.
And like a little child, I would tuck my tail between my legs.
And go take the
And I'm a
boat
pretty
back.
strong personality too, but because my wife is admonishing me in the name of Jesus, I'm going to listen to her. There's no alpha, there's no macho. I will listen to her. I'll never make that decision. Or maybe even if I do, I will acquiesce to my wife, right? Because she has her eyes on God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right.
That's good, man.
That's good. I like that.
I need that nugget.
Yeah.
Young men, take that nugget.
I think. I know. I'm not even gonna say I think. I know. I know that because of the patriarch system that the Lord put in place in the beginning that Raul was talking about, that every man gets the provision and word from the Lord, whether they're Christians or not. And here's what I mean by that. To his point, I've encountered that in my life as well, where I know should make a particular decision, but to please my wife, let's just do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear the
You don't want the headache of
right.
the
And then you move forward 5-6 years later, you're like, wow,
shouldn't
have it, right? And this is what is referring to
That's so good.
like hearing the Lord, because the difference between one man and the next man, right? Because I said every man hears it, is the volume is either low or high.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's low or high, it depends on how much you're immersing yourself in the word and getting connected to the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to give you the provision as the head of the household.
Yeah.
He's going to give you the word.
Yeah.
That's good.
But you
man.
either hear it like this,
Yep. Yeah.
or you know,
Yeah.
or you hear it like this, Charlie.
And that conviction is.
And that was exactly
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
you to move in the way
Yeah.
you need to move. And there's those that just, they hear it. They just
whatever.
choose not to obey it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it is provided. It is provided, and you see that so over and over again. And I had a discussion with my wife about this, because even for the littlest things, driving down the street, and I know we're supposed to go this way,
Yeah.
but because she's like, no, it's this way. Okay, all right, we're gonna go. Well, it was that way. But what if it was life and death for your family?
Right.
Man,
For real.
Yeah.
dropping bombs.
You're gonna say,
real.
well, she said, are you gonna do an Adam?
Hey,
Are you gonna do an
hey,
Adam?
that woman made me go left, bro.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't do that.
Right.
You
No,
still
bro, it falls
ultimately
on you as
it's-
the man.
Ultimately, it still
Yeah.
falls on you.
Yeah, that's good.
But one thing she always says, and I'll stop with this and I'll digress with this. She always says, between the both of us, someone's always right, right?
Yeah.
Someone's always right. Between the both of us, someone's always right. We just have to understand and hear and listen and, really see, because there's sometimes they will help us with that piece of it, with
Yeah.
that decision of it.
It will
Nice.
affirm
It will
what God is
affirm.
speaking to us.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
Well put, man.
Yeah.
Is that something that you learned over the years, or is it something that you went in knowing?
yes, I'm not. I would be fibbing to you if I told you I went in with that.
Trial and error.
We had to learn. We had to learn trial and error, and this is what I feel like with marriage when they say it's work. This is the work that
Yeah.
you're in with the marriage. You put in the work. You put in the time. You fight, right? When you go to what you brought up before, if she doesn't want to, you fight. You fight because he's fighting for you as well, because
Yeah.
he despises divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
same way the enemy sees that it bothers you, because one of the things that we demand as a man is respect.
Yeah.
If we lose respect, then it starts going the other way, you know? So the enemy feeds on that. Oh, she's not respecting him. I'm going to feed that. You as a man have to realize that that's what you're dealing with, and go to the word and go to the Lord.
Yeah.
Help me with this. Help me with that. And he's going to go to bat for you, and then things start changing around. But when a man and a woman who's married, joined by God, with the Lord in the center, put together, unstoppable.
Yeah.
But it takes time to get to that.
Yeah.
Because the selfishness has to get out the way.
That maturity has to grow.
Maturity has to grow in it. And everything is designed to depend on the Lord ultimately.
Yeah.
You will not have a perfect marriage because then you don't need the Lord.
Yeah.
Right.
So. Yeah. Yeah. One thing that, obviously I'm the only single one here. So this morning when I was, reflecting on what exactly it is to be a man, I've been looking at what God has been bringing me through within this last season, right? And the three words that have been continuously coming to my head is discipline, obedience, and humility. And they've been rocking me, and so I know that those are, as a man, right, as a man in the kingdom, fundamentally, we need to be disciplined.
Yeah.
And you can see that in the life of Jesus, right? Even Jesus was underneath right? No, not a Pharisee, but a teacher, whatever you call those people. He was obedient, not only to his parents, but to God, and he was humble,
right?
And then I was like, well, I want to find more of an understanding of what it was like for Jesus, right? And so I was like, what gospel probably would be best, So John is more like divine, right? Matthew, Mark, those were like the synoptic gospels, right? Matthew and Mark
and Luke,
and so, but I knew that Luke was a physician, but he was a minor historian.
He was.
So for me, it was the Holy Spirit was just like, check out Luke, and so I started reading through Luke.
And more importantly, a Gentile, which you share in common with him.
Oh yeah, I guess he was, right. He was a Roman citizen.
Yeah.
And then, and so I was reading, and I came across where I think this was, no, that wasn't it. Which one was it? Where is it? Oh, it was Luke 2:40. Talking about after he had gone and his parents left him and they found him.
Oh, yeah.
And
at the temple.
At the temple. And it says, when Joseph and Mary had done everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee to their own town of Nazareth. And the child grew and became strong. He was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. And so that was another thing that God showed me as being a man in the kingdom, right? We have to have obedience. We have to have discipline. We have to be humble, and we have to be wise, in terms of, and right here, I'd read that before. They became strong, and I'd started to go research more into it. And it's this word, and I think it's only appears 4 times in the New Testament, and I think the word is krateo, and it comes from krateos or kratos, and it means to empower that is passively increase in vigor. And then another, when I looked it up in the concordance, right, the Strong's Concordance, the word was actually waxed strong. And so that, from what I gathered and what I looked up, I think it comes from like that understanding comes from like a candle being dipped, right? And how that wax becomes hardened. And like through the process of being dipped and transformed, you become stronger, you know, spiritually. And so the wisdom, he grew in wisdom, and or he grew in, it said he grew, he became strong. He became strong, whatever that is, the dot with the
Colon.
Yeah, the colon. You know, he became strong, he was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. You know?
Yeah.
So that was kind of, you know, not having a taking it away from the actual marriage covenant. Us as men before, you know, in the kingdom, these were things that I have come to find that like I'm constantly trying to get better at, or allow God to process in me. You know?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I would say that that lens that you're approaching it on is critical, right? Because when you do finally get married, I don't like weddings much, so just invite me to the reception.
I'll invite you to the party.
All right, yeah, perfect.
Wow.
when you do decide to get married, always keep that, right? Because listen, right now you don't have a wife. Your responsibility to God is how you walk with God.
Yeah,
right.
That's good.
And in reading the Bible and strengthening your knowledge and your faith, when you then become a husband, you just keep walking that walk.
Yeah.
You take care of your relationship with God, God's going to take care of that marriage.
Yeah.
It doesn't then transition into happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
That's a lie from the devil, right?
Yes, sir.
So, you know, that I think that's a great, and I think it's probably the most important, and I think is where the church has failed in the biggest way, is not addressing pre-married men. Because it is as I just established in my apologia that
yeah, right?
That the father is the backbone of a healthy spiritual relationship of the family.
Yeah.
I there was a bunch of statistics that I had, and I don't have them right now. They didn't print out. I'm so upset right now. But the double-digit percentage, and I'm talking in the 20s, in the 20s on up to the 60s, 80s, and 90s, of what happens to children as they grow up in a fatherless home, the suicide rate, there's of the 90% of prison populations are men, 75% grew up in fatherless homes. The suicide rate, when it comes to the men who commit suicide, it's something like 78% or something like that, where I grew up in a fatherless home. Wow. And the statistics just keep going on. When it comes to homeless children that they pick off the street, 98% are from fatherless homes.
Wow.
Right? So
yeah,
the church has got to get better at addressing, and I'm talking in the earliest stages, the importance that a young man, right, even at a boy stage, a young man sees himself in terms of his responsibility with God, and how that will take care of everything else when it comes to the family. I know that the world has a grip on us, right? Especially me growing up as a kid. I know how it is, right?
Yeah.
But we have to dissuade our sons, right? Now my son's 25. It's too late for me.
Yeah. Which even gives us Christian men, right, more of an incentive to do what God created the community of believers to do. Yeah. Right? Which is provide and care for the orphans and the widows.
Right. No, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But what I think is you have to start at the starting line, and that's making sure that men have a very healthy idea of what it is to be a man.
Yes.
Right? One of the biggest things of the ATI organization is discipleship. Yeah. And how we so many times fail as disciple fathers because we don't even know how to be disciple sons, because we don't have an example of it.
So good.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So we really got to get better at dissuading our young men from chasing the ladies, and if you do find a lady that you like, teaching them what is it that you need to look for. You know, before you get into any situation where you're by yourselves, why don't you go over to their house for dinner and see how she speaks to her father? Why don't you go over her house for dinner and see how she speaks to her mother?
Yeah.
Right? Because if she disrespects them, trust me, once the honeymoon stage is over, you're next in line.
Yeah.
Right. See how she speaks to her best friend. See how she speaks about her best friend. All those things are very telling. And this is the same for ladies too, right?
Yeah.
Good looking guy, got a 6-pack, big shoulders and all that. But how does he speak about his mom?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How is it that he treats his dad? Does he have a dad? That's a red flag. Unfortunately, it's a red flag. He doesn't have a dad. How is his relationships with younger children in the family? How is his relationships with his friends? What kind of friends does he surround himself with, right? And it's the same for guys, right? We got to start teaching our kids how to pick our mate, the person that we possibly may spend the rest of their life with a lot better, so that we don't end up with the scenario that you brought up as an example.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
100%.
And that even translates to just relationships in general, friendships.
Oh, I would agree.
Yeah. I also, while you were talking, it also brought up two kind of like societal norms or lies that I guess I have like pressures, right? And that you're not complete without a mate.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Look at Paul, right?
Yeah.
He said that it wasn't a command,
Right.
but it was like, look, if you burn with lust, to be married, then do it. But if you don't feel like you have to have the pressure to do that, because now you're like what you were talking about with me, my responsibility is only to God. Like I don't have.
Yeah. But you had to recognize how we were made too, because Paul was a miserable individual and he didn't have a lot of friends. And there's a reason why.
Yeah,
I mean, likable guy.
Being stuck in jail for
yeah. I mean, he's a very strong personality, right? And he was a very unique guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we have to recognize that per the natural order of things, he did make. I'm not disagreeing. I'm completely agreeing with you, right?
Yeah.
But don't do that just because. Okay, well, you know what? I don't want to have to deal with being nagged. That's a different thing.
Yeah,
than
100%.
Yeah. God made you to be with a wife, and Proverbs 18:22 says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing.
Yeah.
Not a girlfriend. Finds a wife.
Yeah.
Finds a good thing."
Yeah.
I live that every day. I have pure joy in my marriage. As strong as she is in personality, and as strong as I am, the grace I get from that lady is a gift from God. It's supernatural, right? And the patience I have for her is supernatural as well. But if someone were to say to me, "Are you happy that you're married?" No, I'm not happy. I am joyous in my marriage.
That's so
happy
good.
is just fleeting, right? It comes and goes.
Goes.
Even the worst day of my marriage with my wife, like in terms of fighting, like Zara say, fight, right? I'm still thank God I have this one to fight with.
Yeah.
Because this girl has my back. This girl will bury a body for me.
Yeah.
I know that. Even with the most mad she is at me, she has my back.
Absolutely.
That's what's up.
Yeah, I was gonna add when we were talking about being the father and sons. I have 3 boys. I've already preset, conversations I'm gonna have with them when it comes to finding that mate, or should they come to it? Because
that's strong.
That's so necessary. I didn't have that.
Let's think about us.
Yeah.
I don't know who here. I mean, I know you guys fairly well, but
Yeah.
did our fathers sit with us and say, "Hey, let's talk about what you should be talking about
Right.
ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
To get a better understanding." No, it was okay.
They said don't have sex, and you don't get girlfriends.
It was
until
always focused
after
around
college.
sex, kids. That was it. But from a spiritual standpoint, like what you were saying, Raul, what to look at and things to consider, like not having a dad in the household.
Yeah.
Is going to have some kind of emotional and history effect on that person.
Yes.
That you got to be prepared to deal with.
Yeah.
Right.
Not saying don't marry someone that doesn't have that,
Right.
but understand what comes with that.
Right.
Understand what comes with that. And if you really love that person, at least you're prepared to know that, hey, they didn't have this. These are things I'm going to encounter, right? That I have to assist and pray about and lift her up. And,
Oh, that's good, bro.
And even providing that safe space for your sons.
Right.
To come to you and be like, look, Dad, this is a decision that I'm thinking about. I think that's a huge flaw that I have, right, is that instead of me being like, should I make this decision or should I not? I'm pretty sure I shouldn't, but I'm just gonna do it. Instead of actually being able to come to my dad.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Being able and even spiritually sometimes, like I'll intentionally ignore God because I want to go do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yep. But training, like what you were talking about, opening up those conversations for dialogue, giving your kids that safe space and letting them know that like if you come to me with these questions, I'm not going to be mad. Like
Correct.
I'm not going to snap on you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, feel like you're challenging me. I want to have these discussions because I want to influence you. I think for me, my dad was a great dad. We all have our flaws, but that was one thing that I was always intimidated, like to ask questions, to come to him and ask for advice, to come and ask him for something, So
that's good.
I just appreciate
Yeah.
what you're doing. Yeah.
Well, at what age are you thinking?
So that's another thing I wanted to say. Everything's different age appropriate, right?
Right.
We don't want to. I don't want to say open doors. You don't want to open doors that don't need to be open at this time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but nowadays you're in elementary school and they're learning
because
stuff.
that's the unfortunate thing. You just hit it right there, though.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate thing. The
Yeah,
unfortunate
bro.
thing is TV. Where they are in school, the phones,
Instagram,
Yeah.
YouTube.
It's advancing some of these things a little too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they get to your child before you do, now you got to unravel stuff before you can even get in to allow that open door to come have that discussion, right? Because they've already been fed some things,
Yeah.
It's like someone eating, unhealthy, and then you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go work out, but they've been fed unhealthy things. You got to undo that unhealthy eating so you can get them to
Gotta
work out
change that mindset.
optimally, change the mindset.
Yeah.
So, we try to filter as much as that as we can. Like my son did ask for a phone. He's going to be 12 years old. He says, hey, everyone that's in my group has a phone, Dad. I'm the only one with no phone within my set, right? And he goes, you know what, Dad? It's okay. Get me a flip phone. It's okay. And I was like,
That's what's up.
we could talk about a flip phone because then its intended purpose is really just so I can communicate with you.
That's right.
But if you can't navigate through internet and all that stuff, I think it's probably all right. So we're going to, have that discussion and consider that. But age appropriate times for certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, I know when those discussions need to come up. We've had a few already. Some have been financial.
That's
I mean,
cool.
even though they're early in age, 8 and 11,
Yeah.
financials have come up
Yeah.
because they see what's happening on TV. When they say, well, my son said, what's inflation? What's that? He's hearing the words.
Yeah.
So I kind of explained to him, okay, as best as I can, so that they can understand. And, as they get older, they start understanding, hey, there's a cost for everything in this world.
Right.
And you're working and right now, my sons, we go out. True story. We'll be out in Disney World, something. I buy them food. It's my job to make sure they're fed. If we leave the restaurant and then 20 minutes later, oh, Dad, I want that ice cream. Okay, you pay for it. Oh, I don't want it no more.
Right.
Because I did my part and fed and gave you what you needed. You need to eat.
I like this.
Right?
Yeah.
But then now you see something, now it's overly abundant at this point because you ate, you had a cookie, you had everything. But because I'm giving it to you, sure, why not? Let me get it. I might not even eat the whole thing.
Right.
But the moment I say, use your money,
Man.
oh, it's not worth it anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
My
And
kids know
that's
the
a
value
great
of
spiritual
money.
and that's a great spiritual principle too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It
So
becomes
they know.
diminishing returns. Yeah.
They know the value of money.
Yeah,
That's the thing. Because
absolutely.
if a child doesn't know the value of money, and this goes not just for money,
And
for
the value
everything,
of their time.
right? They got to understand. If they don't understand values, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because if they have money in their accounts, they say, you buy it with your money. Okay. But they understand the value of money, that when it's just gone and they need something else, it's not going to be there.
Yeah.
So it's important, not just from a financial standpoint, but for them to understand values, spiritual values, financial values. Once they understand what those values that are appointed for those different things are, now they start formulating and understanding what's valuable, what's truly valuable, and putting the priorities in place, my time, money, things like that. Getting that early on is going to be crucial for them when they turn 18, 19, 20.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So, right.
Seriously.
Right. Because you can make financial mistakes at that age that'll impact you
for a long time.
Into almost, right? Until you're almost 30, right?
I'm learning.
All right, guys. So we got 5 minutes. Zara, I'm glad that you brought that stuff up at the end. We're going to have a podcast, and Zara already agreed to come on with that one, and it's going to be about finances and how important finances are, especially when it comes to making sure that your family's in the best position possible. So look forward to that, guys. That's going to be definitely within a month, hopefully, if Zara's available.
For sure.
And we'll be talking about credit and introducing it to your children and what you should be aware of yourself, educate yourself, and educate your children. All right, so we got 4 minutes. Final word, 60 seconds. Jay, give me.
Well, I've been sitting back mostly and listening and taking it in.
You've been in learning mode,
right? And it's important for people to realize that it's okay to not say something and soak up, because it's not always pouring out. Sometimes it's being poured into. So this has been great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Charlie?
I think my biggest takeaway was understanding what a patriarchy is. I was under the understanding that it was more of just like a provision that, or more of just like a dictatorship from whatever sex was at the top of the family lineage, right?
Right.
But understanding from a biblical perspective of patriarchy literally means that man is responsible to God for his family, and the decisions that are made for his family fall on his back.
Perfect. That's the podcast in one sentence right there.
Yeah.
Zara, you got the last one.
Well, again, always appreciate having these conversations. It's very important to have them, for the listeners out there and even for ourselves. But to what you said to both of you, knowing when to kind of sit back and hear it and soak in the information, and, but also, going back to the origins of why these things are what they are, and kind of going back to Adam and Eve and seeing why things, how it trickled down to what it is. I think it brings a new light to everyone that understands that, oh, I get it now, and starts feeling it. So appreciate you, Raul, inviting us here, and appreciate you kind of going into that and speaking on.
It's been a pleasure. Guys, look out next week. We're going to be back with another episode with somebody from the ECA crew, or almost everybody, whoever's available. We're going to go ahead and talk about things that are important to us as Christians, and to unbelievers who are listening. We love you. Stay with us. Hang out with us. Thanks so much for listening today. Goodbye.